Hello, my friends. Katie Day with the Move Me to Texas team here with another episode of the Real Advice podcast. I am excited to welcome this week's guest to the podcast. I have known him for a few years and have always admired his social media presence and his team leadership and leadership in the industry and the amazing things he does to leverage his past clients and sphere and people in his community. Please join me in welcoming Brennen Clouse. What's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
It is going. It's been a wild week. This is going to be airing like sometime in November, but we just came off of our annual brokerage conference. So we're both feeling a little tired, but I'm really excited to dig in because I feel like you do so many cool things. And I'm just excited to learn more about them selfishly and then obviously share them with everyone that's listening. So, Brennan, for the people that may not know you, how did you get into real estate?
For sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. That means a lot coming from you that you're excited to learn from me. That's such a nice compliment. I got into real estate about 7 years ago. So originally, I moved to Seattle, Washington, which is the market I work in, as a newly minted graduate of
Yep.
college. And I was working at Microsoft, actually. So I worked at Microsoft for about 4 years and I was doing marketing there. And that is quite a nice life. Like Microsoft is a great,
I've heard of the
great
company.
company.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
It's a great company, and it's really wonderful to work there. There's a lot of great benefits. But I was just feeling like it wasn't really my passion or something that was driving me forward in what I wanted to ultimately do. And so I started to talk to a couple different mentors and think about what it was that I was passionate about. And a lot of that kind of revolved around interior design.
Okay.
It revolved around like interiors of homes. And so I kind of zoned in on that. And then one of my mentors was actually an interior designer. And he encouraged me to get my real estate license. He said, why don't you get your license and think about like you could flip homes that would combine both things that you're kind of interested in, the real estate side as well as the interior side. Or you could choose a different path, but that would give you an option for either. And so I took his advice. I got the license, and then I actually somehow ended up in the recruiting broker's office at Keller Williams.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I just, she was amazing. She's still in my life to this day. I know her. And she was just like, you should just start. You should just try it.
Yeah.
And so that as I worked at Microsoft, I started my real estate career. So I was doing
Okay.
both for a little over a year.
I
I
feel like
joined.
that's a tall task.
It was a tall task, to be honest. So much of the work at Microsoft is independent, and it is,
Okay.
if you can get your job done and accomplish your tasks, then you're not really watched over. No one is like making you clock in and clock out. So
Yeah.
I would honestly go to my team's office at 8 in the morning. I would start making cold calls. They were teaching me like, here's how you prospect. So I'd start making cold calls at 8 a.m. And then by 10, I would leave and drive to Microsoft. And I would finish my day there. And
Yeah.
then
Mhm.
luckily, once I had my very first client, I would show houses after that. So, and my first client was actually my teammate at Microsoft, which was amazing, right?
You're like, tell people, but don't tell people. You got to tell the cool people
Exactly.
because I'm not. Yeah, that's hilarious.
You tell the people who are like chill about it and are like,
Yeah.
yeah, I trust you. And like, obviously, I'm going to work with you. So we would literally leave the office together and I would take him and his wife to go look at houses, which was amazing. But it took me 8 months to sell my first house in this sort of arrangement because I
Yeah.
was spread a little bit more thin. My first house, by myself, not a team transaction. And so after about a year and 3 months, I, got my annual bonus from Microsoft, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
It's time to make the leap. If I need to, I can go back. I can always reapply or re-interview. And then that's what started my real estate career, and have been doing it ever since.
So I think that a lot of people get into real estate part time, right? Like you did.
Yep.
And I mean, I talk to a lot of agents that are in that position, right? And they want to make the jump, but they're really nervous to do so, especially walking away from benefits, walking away from, especially with Microsoft, I assume a very generous, compensation package. When you're talking about annual bonuses from a company like Microsoft, they're not giving you like, $20 and a jelly of the month, jam of the month gift card. So,
Correct.
it's hard to walk away from that. And so where I'm going with all of this is, what advice would you give to someone if they were currently a part-time agent trying to go full-time? Like what, obviously you had a sum of money, right? So would it be to save money, or what would be like your advice to someone if they were looking to make that jump?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think obviously, yes, you need to save to the point where you feel comfortable. And for me, I think anytime I make a pivot or decide to even do something new in my current business, there's always a point of discomfort where I
Mhm.
feel like I'm taking a risk, but that I have a plan that I could fall back on. And so for me, it was continually thinking about, okay, well, here's how much money I have saved. Here's what I could do to save even more money after I make the jump. And then what is the backup plan? Luckily, I didn't have to go through that backup plan, but for me, it was, well, I could reapply at Microsoft. I could reapply somewhere else. I could work a part-time job if I needed to.
Yeah.
And so I think honestly, there's a point where you do have to make the jump. I think that in order to be successful, you need to make that leap, and I needed to make that leap for sure to even push myself to have a successful business, because if you have that part-time job to rely on, I think you always are in a state of like of living your backup plan, and you're not in a state of living like I have to push myself to get that next paycheck. And so I think for part-time agents, there is a point where you have to tell yourself like, hey, I have to make this jump because I need to
Yeah.
push myself to make my career in real estate an actual realized reality, and something that I'm actually doing, so that I do push myself to get that next sale closed, to get that next client. Because if you're always in that state of like, oh, I've got
Mm.
something on the side that I can rely on, then you're never going to push yourself 100% in real estate.
That's huge. And I think, I assume that you were in the room for Hermosi at the conference.
Yes, absolutely.
But the things that really resonated with me was like, people always want to do things when it's the right time, or it's the perfect time. And he basically kind of went through the like who, what, where, when, why, how, around decision making and stuff like that. And like his thing was like, one, you already know all the things that you need to know. You're just not doing them to the extent that you should. And he was like, there have been times in his life where like, whether it be his wife or a business partner or something else, like call him out to be like, you have the time, you're just choosing not to do it. Right. And so I think, we put ourselves into these comfortable positions, right? You have a, whatever it is, salary, these benefits, all of this stuff. And it's like, oh, well, like then I go sell a home every once in a while and, make a bunch of extra money. And this is great. Right. But like, you've got to, if this is what you want, you've got to like push yourself. Right. And be like, all right, I'm ripping the Band-Aid. It's either going to work or not work, or uh, what's the worst thing that could happen. Right. And if
Right.
you figure that out now and you say, okay, I'm okay with that, like, then let's go. Let's do this.
Right, yeah, like, I loved, eating out. I still do to this day,
I
like, it's one
I
of
was
my
like,
favorite.
loved. That should not be past tense. I feel like I know you well enough to say that's
I
yes.
I love eating out. I currently love eating out, and, when I was making the transition, I was like, "Okay, if I have to stop doing that, if I have to start cooking more at home, or if I have to
Yeah.
eat, like, ramen
Yeah.
for 3 weeks to spread my money, then I'm gonna do that." And that felt like a sort of a worst case scenario of like, "Okay, well, this is the worst it could get,"
Yeah.
right? And that's, obviously privilege, but, this is the worst that it could get, and so what am I going to do? And I think, yeah, Hormozy was amazing of like, look, we can all tell ourselves like we're gonna start when this
Yeah.
happens, or we're gonna start when we have the time. And he is like, the time to start is now. Like there are no conditions that are going to make it easier or better.
Yeah.
And in fact, the busier you are, the better time it is to start, because if you can do it when you're busy, then you can certainly do it when you have a lot of free time.
That that resonated with me so significantly. And then his real estate example, right, was like, if you can make the time in a busy market, right? Like now is the time to do that. Now is the time to hone these skills. Now is the time to like kind of prove your worth, because he's like, all of the consumers that you want to work with are watching, right? So whether or not they're commenting on your content, or whether or not whatever, like, so just do it. And then the other thing that he was saying that I really liked was like the I just completely lost my train of thought. The about consumers getting it done. I don't remember.
They
There's
see you
another real
doing
estate
it.
thing.
They see you doing it now. They'll see you. They know you can do it in a good market.
Yeah. That was it. I'm just gonna cut that part out.
Okay.
No, shit, what was it? There was something that he said that was like, it hit me so deep, but I took a picture of literally every single one of his slides almost. And so, that's I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I remember what it was. The other thing that really resonated with me was that when he said basically like, anyone that's successful doesn't have any skills or abilities that you don't have. They just outlasted everyone else, right? And so like, what I think about a lot is like, in the market that we're in, some people say it's an easy market, some people say it's a hard market. Like, we know that the conditions are difficult because interest rates are high, inventory is low, right? And it's harder to sell a home. So whether or not you have the right mindset, but like, if you can outlast and if you can continue to put in the work, like, you will be successful. What advice, like, I know you have a team and I know that you're a leader, like in the space and in your market and things like that. Like, what are things in that thought process, right, of outlasting and doing the right things, and like doing starting the initiatives today and stuff like that? Like, what are the things that you're coaching your team on, and even yourself, right, reminding yourself on a regular basis to keep the right mindset and to do the right things?
Yeah, I think that this year specifically for me has been a year of rebuilding.
Hmm.
And when I started that, I think this is was called out as cliche on the stage, maybe, of saying like going back to basics. So maybe we don't use that, but I think realtors understand that speak of when you
Yeah,
say going back to basics, you think of like, okay, going back to prospecting. Maybe I've lost my way. I'm going back to spending time actually following up. I'm going back to making sure that every single client has a stellar experience and that they want to refer me, because I think a lot of those things could be lost, and some of those things were certainly lost for me during the pandemic and
for sure.
during this time where things were super busy and we were all fortunate enough to be selling a lot. I'm coaching myself on the foundational things that cannot wait until tomorrow. And so that
I love
is,
that.
spending time every single day following up. And we
Yeah.
spend time as a team. And so with my team, they know, we're going to practice scripts and then we're going to follow up together.
Yeah.
And that's just an expectation coming in. And then, you know, thinking about a big impact to me and something that I've thought about and reflected on since Rise is, someone said on stage, the next 6 months are going to be probably the hardest in the business. And so if you think about outlasting, I'm not only thinking about that follow up and making sure that I have the list of people that are going to be my primary clients, but challenging my team to think about what are 3 things before the end of the year that you can accomplish that are going to set you up for a
Yeah.
stellar 2024. Let's start working on those now. Back to Hormozy's point, like this is the time to start working on those. Um, and thinking, about what are we doing every single day to put into our business what we want to see in the next 6 months.
Well, and a lot of realtors focus, we talk a lot about like the leading and lagging measures of a business. And like, pretty much everyone talks in units sold and GCI and sales volume and things like that. And so it's like, if I'm asking you how business is going, like, you're going to categorize that conversation and like, well, we're down 20% from last year, or we're up X% from last year, or we've sold this many more homes this year versus last, or this fewer homes this year versus last. And like, those are the things that like are great to track for like the scoreboard effect, but like I've really been focusing in on like for my team, like the calls and the conversations and the appointments. And, we're doing a client event this weekend. So like getting in touch, retexting, recalling, getting in front of people. Right. And those are the things that like we should be talking about, right? Like not the end result, right? Like if we can fall in love with the process and we can fall in love with the actions it takes, that's what's going to move the needle forward. And like it is cliche, right? The back to basics, but like it truly is something that like we all really got away from. Like we didn't need to make the calls, we didn't need to do the follow-ups, and the amount of interest that people had and the amount of demand that we had was just like, oh well shit, like we're gonna sell a house, so like we don't need to follow up. And especially with all of the things that are happening in the world right now, and in the real estate world specifically, like you've got to, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that you mentioned was ensuring that you take care of your client so well that they will obviously either come back to you and be a repeat business type person, or that they're referring you other business. And so what are some things that you've done to kind of, I hate the word systematize, but what are some things that you've done that's like, okay, these are non-negotiables for our client experience, right? um as far as maybe some basic stuff first, like
Yeah.
if I was a brand new agent, things that I could implement from day one.
Yeah, absolutely. So this all comes back to where I started at Microsoft.
Yeah.
So a big part of my role was how do we um, make the customer experience better? And that was specifically in tech, obviously, and with different products. But taking that mindset to real estate, how do
Yeah.
we make sure that the customer experience specifically is the best it can possibly be? And so I call this surprise and delight. Other
Yeah.
realtors might call it different things, but throughout the transaction, I want our clients to be surprised by how great we are and then delighted about how great we are.
Yeah.
And I find that that leads to more repeat business. It leads to your clients talking about you more. It leads to those clients introducing you to more people. And we've probably all heard it or want to hear it, like, oh, you're the best,
Yeah.
like I've
Yeah.
worked
Yeah.
with other realtors, but you're the best I've ever worked with. So I think the basics, starting with the basics, we do an intake form. We call it everything about you or all about you. And we send that to every single client after their initial consultation. So if you have a seller consultation, it looks slightly different because it's more information about your house as well as yourself. But if you're a buyer, it's all about you. And we've already taken the notes on, what you're looking for in a home, those sorts of things. But everything about you, from what are your pets' names and birthdays to where did you go to school to what's your favorite restaurant in Seattle, right? All of those items.
Okay. And so when do you provide this? Because you said like after they're a client. So this is like you guys have had a consultation and they say, okay, yeah, awesome, we want to work together, and or on the listing side, you've signed the listing agreement, and now you're onboarding them. Is that kind of the timeline, or when do you do this?
Yep, that's correct. So as soon as we have that initial consultation,
Yeah.
this is a link that is built into our email template. So
Okay.
every client gets the same exact email after their consultation. That is, hey, and we talk about it in the consultation.
That's
When you're ready to move forward, here are the items you're going to do, right? And now it is sign a buyer agency agreement,
yeah.
fill out
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
you. Here are 5 next steps. And so it's built into that email template. And then we have that. We use Airtable, but you could use
Yeah.
Google Forms. You could really use anything. We have that come in. So now we not only have our clients' basic information, we have everything that they love and every way that we could possibly delight them. We have their coffee
Yeah.
order if they like coffee. We have if they like coffee or tea, beer or wine. And then we use this information to then plan how we're going to delight them, surprise and delight them. So we take that information. There are some gifts that we give that are just standardized, like moving boxes. So
Okay.
after they complete their inspection contingency, we send them moving boxes. We send it through Amazon to make
Mm.
it easier to scale. It's less time on our part. It still has a gift note, so we're
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah. Yeah.
make it nice, and not just a one-off, but this is a way to scale, right? And if you're doing enough transactions. You're not going to be able to take all these gifts to every single client, unfortunately. So you have to kind of rely on something like Amazon to do that. And then every single client gets crumble cookies before closing.
Love them.
And
All right.
so, yeah, so good. It's pretty low cost in terms of delivery. They'll ship them for you. It's a, sweet countdown to closing. That's what we call it. And just to get them excited,
Yeah.
about the big thing that's coming up. So those are two of our surprise and delights in our transaction. I've also heard other agents, Alyssa, she's over in Eastern Washington. She does a super cute, like, moving package box, like
Like
with
toilet paper and
labels and
stuff. Oh,
markers.
okay.
Yeah, like similar to like moving boxes, but it's more about like the labels and the markers.
How
Not
is toilet paper? I was thinking like toilet paper, paper towels, like, 'cause when you move to a new place, you get in and like
Yes.
you don't have anything. You're like, ah, geez, I need to wash my hands.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So anyways, that got weird. But no, I mean, I think that those are good. And you made a key point that I was gonna ask you about, and I'm really glad that you said it. And so it's that you send this out in a templated email, right? So this is something you're sending out to every single client of, hey, awesome, you just signed a listing agreement. We're working together. Or, oh, hey, we just had a consult. And so these are the next steps, right? And the thing that I always harp on is like with my team is always moving people down the line, right? And it's not always the same line. We're not always walking down the same line, but it's like, that you always need to have some sort of next step. And so, by talking about it in the consultation and saying, hey, so the next thing will be for you to fill out the intake form, which, you have a nicer name, but you fill out the intake form and you sign this representation agreement, for us to work together, right? You're giving that next step. And then when they get that email, it's not a surprise. So that's
Yeah,
so key, is like priming them, right? Of like, hey, this is the next thing you're going to do. Okay. And now this is the next thing you're going to do. I love that. All right.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think it's essential. We
um,
always say, like, you never leave a client without your next action planned with them,
yes, for sure.
right?
For
Like,
sure.
whether it is getting off the Zillow call and having the showing planned, or whether it's getting off of a consultation,
Yeah.
here's the next time we're going to connect, or the next thing you're going to do.
Yeah. No, that's so important. And just provides that level of certainty, and even if it's there isn't anything, so we're not going to speak for a week, right? Like, just making sure that they know this is what we just did and this is what's coming next. So you're talking a lot about, a client coming in. I love that, you get their Starbucks order, you get their coffee order, that they drink tea and not coffee, and then, like, you can show up with it at showings, or you can do different things. I like that a lot. So, they're under contract, you send the moving boxes, you're doing this stuff. What's kind of your post, transaction thing? I think that's where most agents fail. Like, I do a really good job of giving you great service, and then you close, and then I never speak to you again. And then I see your home on the MLS, a couple years later, and I, you know, shake my fist, right? So what are some things that you're doing post transaction to stay in conversation with them? Because like it's hard sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that feeds directly into post transaction from that All About You form is we have options of subscription gifts. So we have things like a dog or cat subscription, a beer subscription, wine subscription, coffee, tea. So we like to focus on the subscription. And I got this from a coach that I had early on, who was like, why give them one gift at the very end when you could be at their door every single month or every
Yeah.
quarter?
Yeah.
And I love that idea because it automates that for you. Every single time they get it, they're going to think of me and that transaction and that day when I gave them the keys. So that's the first thing that I think is super easy to implement.
And so you're just using like a bark box or a, beer of the
Exactly.
month club or whatever, and just picked like, hey, this
Yep.
is the dollar amount we're gonna do, and like they get one of these and it costs a couple $100 a year kind of thing.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
And we do it for 1 year. One thing that I'm trying to implement more now, I just heard at a conference I was at, was an agent said, I call my clients that just closed 1 week after closing, because at that point they know that they are the least likely person to buy or sell a house again with me. And so they know that the reason I'm calling is because I care and I want to make sure everything's okay with them, that they're in the house? Do they need any recommendations? How's it going? Is anything wrong? And I thought that was great because there have been where I don't talk to my clients for another month after they've closed,
Yeah.
right? And so you have
Mhm.
that awkward break, like almost like you just broke up with them, right? Of like, we're
Yeah.
not talking anymore. So I'm trying to implement that now. And then we do anniversary emails. So we send an anniversary email at 1 month, 6 months, and then
Oh, you
one.
guys do like dating anniversaries. I love
Oh
it.
yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. We're trying to date them basically.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Oh, no, so we're sending the emails, and then I have a system with my virtual assistant where they send me every single day, they send me what the anniversaries are of that day, or that there are no
Yeah. Yeah.
anniversaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's in my email inbox, so I can also either call or text that client that day.
So I really like the 7-day call
Mhm.
because not only did you just go from talking to someone like almost every day to not talking to them at all, if there are things that are wrong with their home, or if there are things that they want to know where the mailbox is, or if they want to know whatever, you still have a pretty good relationship probably with the agent on the other side, right?
Yeah.
And so if we're still in communication, or if the transaction just ended and I reach out to you, you're far more likely to respond to me quickly than 6 months down the road when our clients realize they've never checked their mail, right? Like
Yeah.
it's something that like you'd be able to get their questions answered. You'd be able to, if they said, oh, hey, there's mail for the seller, the seller could pop by and pick it up, or the agent could pop by and pick it up. Like, so there's things that it just makes that communication for everyone a lot easier and raises the bar. So I'm literally like, I opened up a tab to our CRM and like we have a post closing action plan. Like I literally am going to add that in when we get off the call. And like I know the agents are gonna be like, where did this come from? But um yeah, that's awesome. That's such a good idea to just really, be of service.
Yeah, I thought it was incredible, and, like, I don't think it excludes you from also asking for a referral at that time, or
Yeah.
reminding them that you love working with them and you'd love to work with anyone else they know, but
Yeah.
it's also coming from a place of, like, "Hey, I really wanna make sure that this is still good for you," right? I've been as my client probably, I've already been paid my commission. I'm super happy, I'm
Yeah.
going shopping or something, but I wanna make sure that everything's still fine with you.
You were going out to eat. Don't
Yeah,
lie
I
to
was
don't
going
lie
out to
to
eat
don't lie
actually.
to
Yeah, yeah,
everyone.
yeah.
So I just I really, really like that. One of the things I was gonna say too is like obviously if you've already talked to them potentially about a review, like it could be a time that you ask again, right? Because like most
Yeah.
people will ask on closing day and it's like, they're getting the keys and then moving and then doing all of these things and it's just like a chaotic time and like leaving your review probably isn't high on the list. Are there other times in the transaction that you ask for a review, or are they built into any emails or anything like that as like a soft ask?
So we don't have any soft asks. That's a good thing that we could do.
Mhm.
We do have a templated email on the day of closing that goes out, so they're still engaged. Um, and we will go back and remind them 30 days later if they haven't sent a review.
Yeah.
But we have a templated email. I do always ask for the referral at closing. So when we're handing
Nice.
over the keys, we always ask for that. And that's something our team trains on as well. Because I've found that that's where a lot of business can come from. And maybe it's not right then, but I do believe, as many coaches say, when someone's going through the process, that's all they're thinking about and talking about with everyone else. And
Yeah.
so for you to be top of mind when they're having that conversation is super important. Um, but we're not asking for the review any other time. I think there are times when people have decided to either not sell or not buy after we've met. And I will ask for a review then, like, hey, I know that now's not the right time. Is it possible still to get a review of what you thought of my performance to help you make that decision? And I don't think that's something that's out of bounds for agents to ask for. Especially if you had a great consultation, or if they, sometimes we have sellers who want to sell before 2 years, and we always talk about capital gains tax, right?
Yeah.
And how will that impact you? And they're like, okay, now's not the time for us, but wow, like no other agent has said that to us before. We can tell you care, and you're not just like wanting to get a commission out of us, that you really want to help us and help us build financially.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I think that it's so important. you gain so much more respect from a client if you tell them that it's not the right time for them to buy or sell, you know? I've
Mhm.
gotten referrals from people that like, I'm like, oh, well, like Brennan, who referred you? And they're like, oh, Susie Smith. And I'm like, Susie Smith, I've never worked. I'm like, oh, geez, that was that listing appointment where I told her like she couldn't, she shouldn't sell because it didn't make sense for a few years. I'm like, man, that's crazy. So,
Yeah,
because I think that, as real estate agents, we get the stigma or stereotype that like we're just in it for the money, right?
yeah,
And so when you actually do the right thing, people respect that. Going back to kind of the post closing, right? So you guys have the email that goes out. You're calling them, the week or so after closing. You're sending out the emails on the home anniversary, the dating home anniversaries, because those are like, I mean,
yeah,
that's I like that. What else do y'all do? And then you also do the coffee or some sort of gift subscription,
yeah.
post closing. What else?
So we have one lender that we partner with for the year anniversary, and we
Okay.
send that lender covers the cost and sends a cutting board with their name on it, which is kind of a cute gift. But if we're not partnered with that lender, we typically send a annual gift. It's from Amazon, and it'll be something that I one thing I love is watching reels or TikToks of like Amazon home finds, like top 10 Amazon home
Yeah. Yeah.
finds
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
And so I'll pick something from that. So like we're sending these really popular like oven mitts that people really like. And it's like silly, but it's cute. And people are like, oh, I've been needing new ones. It's like something that no one thinks about. But
Well, you just have the like old grody one with the hole in the thing that you
exactly.
burn your fingers on every once in a while when you forget or you put it on the wrong way. So yeah, no, that's
Yeah, yeah. So
that's
it's
good.
like, it's something like $25, right? And you can ship it from Amazon. Again, we have the gift note with it.
Tag,
There's
yeah.
an option to send as a gift, and they get a QR code and they can scan that QR code from their package and then send you a thank you. So
Yeah.
I get lots of different thank yous from clients that way. And then one thing I'm working on in my business to implement is the annual update on home equity and actually making the call. So I find it hard to call past clients. I find it somewhat salesy, and I am shifting my mindset currently right now to
on
not
this
feel
on this
salesy.
episode.
We're doing a
Well,
mindset
so
shift.
so just to let's I'll put on my coach's hat now, but one of the things that we talk about with those is like similar to you saying that you're asking for the reviews or you're prepping them that they're going to get a form to fill out. Like I think that it just comes down to the language that you're using and that you're telling them about it, right? So like you guys close and you say, awesome, or you talk to them at the 1 week or the 1 month or whatever. And you're like, oh, hey, like, every 6 months we do these for our clients. Like it's just a service that we do. I know you're not going to sell, you still love your home, right, Brennan? Right. And then if you do it at a 6 month and then you do it at 12 months, then you do it at 18, then you do it at 24, like then they just kind of know that it's going to happen. I would
Yeah,
also say your templated email of the equity review that you're sending out, in the email it should say like, hey, here's this is what we're seeing as the value, and then like I'll call you in the next few days to like go over this and like put that in the email so that like you physically have to delete it like and feel like kind of an asshole when you're deleting out the things that you're supposed to be doing. Because we added that into our template for the team of like, here's the stuff, please see attached, blah blah blah, whatever. And then at the bottom it's like, I'll call you in the next how many ever days to review.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a great idea. I've actually never thought about telling them at the closing, but I think that's great. Like you prime them of like, hey, this is just something I do for all of my clients. It's,
Yeah.
free to you. And I just want you to be aware of the value of your home. And I recently have been circle dialing and asking people if they might be thinking about selling and asking them when they last had a home value update or like when
Yeah.
they last checked the value. Some people will say, yeah, I know from Zillow. Others will say, never, but why do I need that? And I think
Yeah.
it's our job to help retrain people that this is an asset that they own and like being updated on the investment is a great thing to do and have.
Well, and I don't know about for y'all, but like for us, some of the stuff is like, for insurance purposes, right? To make
Mhm.
sure, I shouldn't say insure, to make sure that your insurance values are appropriate for the value of your home, right? Or,
Yeah,
for like just asset planning and things like that, right? So I mean it's not just to sell the property. And I think that if you know that they love their home and all of that, like, and you say it like, hey, no, I know you're not trying to sell, but like, this is just something that we do for our clients. um Whenever we go on the pushes for the equity reviews, like we always end up with conversations of like, oh well, I was thinking about maybe buying an investment property, or oh, I actually have a coworker that's looking to purchase a home, and like I'm not even asking for the referral or asking them about real estate stuff, like I'm just trying to tell you the value of your property. So
yeah.
just being in conversation, right, creates opportunity, and so I think that's super important. I love the post close transaction stuff. I love the stuff that you all are doing, and that the fact that you like have the templated emails, that you have some systems behind it, that you're obviously if you're in the neighborhood, you can pop by a gift or something like that, or drop something off at their house, but that you're leveraging other companies, right? Whether it's Crumble or a gifting service or Amazon to get it there, right? It's also
Yeah,
helpful when you realize that it's like someone's, home anniversary. You're like, oh shit, I can get this to them by 10 p.m. tonight. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's super helpful. And if you're an agent that's listening to this, like I would just build this into your plan. You're probably not going to do all of this today, right? Or for these closings, but like add in one or two things, and then, maybe add in some gifts next year, and then add in some more things as you go. But it's a constantly evolving process. Um,
yeah.
what
Well,
advice
and I
would you
think,
give to someone if they were like trying
yeah,
to start this?
I think on top of that, like batch the work each month, right? Like currently, we have a virtual assistant do this at the beginning of every month, but you can batch this so that
Yeah.
you have it. At the beginning of the month, you could literally spend an hour and get every single anniversary done. So just put it on your calendar and start
Yeah.
there. I think my advice goes back to, I think part of this came from my past in Microsoft, but also part of it came from reading Giftology, which is this great book
Mhm.
about how gifting can impact you building your business and the
Yeah.
success of your business. So I think that's a great place to start if you feel overwhelmed by gifting and what to do. And then I think start with the basics, start with that form that gives you the information about all of your clients and implement that first. That can be valuable to you in so many different ways in so many years from now, because I've talked to people about, you could segment your marketing based on what people like. Do they like dogs or cats? Do they like the Chiefs or the Broncos? Like you could do a lot of different interesting marketing things. I don't have that many clients that are sporty, but they might love that.
Sporty.
But sporty. But
Yay, sports.
sports. There's so many different things that you could use that for. So I think that's a really
Yeah.
good and strong baseline to establish. And if you're an agent working by yourself, you can definitely do that. It is very simple and something that you can implement right away. And then I would say, sort of like you said, start building upon that. So maybe you're not even sending a gift every year, but maybe you're just
Yeah.
starting the call, and starting to be in touch with those people who have helped you build your business, and I think that's super important.
Yeah. I love the breakdown of that because I think that it is overwhelming um, for anyone to try to start a new initiative. And I think it's especially overwhelming as a newer agent. And you perhaps don't have that cash reserves to start doing these things and sending
Yeah,
out stuff, right? So it's like you've got to kind of figure out what's going to make the cut for this year, and then as you start to build, some savings and have some money, right, then start layering in more stuff. So I love that concept. And if you haven't read Giftology, it's a really good book, and the mindset around it, the marketing versus the gifting is very important. So if you haven't read it, go get it. All right. I'm going to hit you with one last question, and saying that you enjoy eating out. I'm sure this one will be hard for you, and it is, if it was your last meal on earth, what would you be chowing down on?
wow, oh gosh.
It
Is
can
it
be
just the food, or could it be like,
I, if you want to go into detail, it's up to you. And like, I mean, some people are like, I would have the appetizer here and the entree here and the side dish here.
oh,
So I mean, this is like, not like an hour long question, but like you're welcome to go into some detail if you'd like.
I think I'm just gonna give a broad genre of food.
Okay.
I think it would have to be something Italian, and
Okay.
it would include for sure pizza, but like the pizza that's like on focaccia bread basically, and it's
Okay.
usually it cut into like squares or
Yeah.
rectangles like that. I don't think you can get any better, and it's not even like a fine dining experience. It might just be like a hole in the wall.
Those are the
So I
best
don't have.
kinds though, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't have a specific restaurant for you.
Okay.
I'm restaurant agnostic, but I think it's definitely in the Italian genre, and it is including pizza.
Non-discriminatory pizza eater. That's what we go for here on the Real Advice podcast. We don't want to discriminate against pizza places. Uh
Exactly. It's also probably good between showings if you need it, just hold it in your hand. And if it's my last meal, I might be showing a house. Who knows?
a little morbid, but it was my question, so I threw it out there, and you just took it home. So I appreciate that. Okay, so Brennan, if someone doesn't follow you on social, where is the best place for them to connect with you?
Yes, I am across all social platforms at Bren, the broker. Some people think my name is Brent, but it's Bren, the broker, no spaces. And my team is named the Emerald Group. So we're out of Seattle, Washington, and we're at Emerald Group RE across
Perfect.
socials.
Bren, the broker.
Correct, not Brent.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your knowledge. If you haven't read Giftology, go read it and then start implementing the things that Bren, the broker, is doing, because it will definitely increase the amount of satisfaction from your clients. It will surprise and delight them, and it will hopefully also increase the amount of referrals that you're getting. But thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you soon.
Thank you for having me.